Rosicrucian teaching is this: when you measure up to the full stature of a man, all the forces of nature are at your service. You can command them all. Not the least of your desires will be unsatisfied, because you will be a conscious administrator of the cosmic desire, working with knowledge and understanding to fulfill your share in the great work of adaptation. Never will you kill out desire. Never will you succeed in formulating a philosophy which does not express desire. But when you train desire aright, you cannot want anything which runs counter to the cosmic order. Your central purpose will be that of perfect obedience to what really is. Then you will see that nature is never your adversary. Our business is to work with nature, not against her. You will have the proper mental preparation for understanding the grade of Lesser Adept, if you remember that beauty is always related to fitness and strength. Whatever is truly adapted to its uses is beautiful to people who can perceive its fitness. Beauty is not mere prettiness. Often the untrained eye or ear reject what is profoundly admired by those who have had right instruction. Even machinery perfectly designed has forms that delight the eye of the true artist. Beauty is always the result of increased efficiency. Quote, "The beautiful lives are the accurate ones," end quote, says Eliphas Levi. Quote, "And the magnificences of nature are an algebra of graces and splendors," end quote. Here is no namby-pamby aestheticism such as Gilbert and Sullivan loved to burlesque. The beauty which the lesser adept learns to see is rooted in strength and balance. Hence the diagram of the tree of life shows Tifereth as the central point of equilibrium. From Tifereth, too, the middle pillar of the tree takes its name. It is the pillar of beauty. Observe that the numbers of the circles on the pillar, 1, 6, 9, 10, add to 26. The number of Yod-He-Vav-He. For primitive men, everything unknown is an adversary. He lives surrounded by devils, demons in trees and stones, in rivers, in the clouds. Everything frightens him. Everything seems to thwart him. Little by little he comes to learn that the forces of nature will work with him to the degree that he learns to understand them. The conflict between his inner realization that he is born to command and the outer appearance that all sorts of forces are working against him is what goads him on the discovery of the hidden laws whereby he may turn his natural adversaries into friends. There is no adversary except human misconception of the various ways in which the life power presents itself to us through the medium of sensation. When we take our sensations at face value, we think we are competing with our fellow man. When we permit ourselves to be deceived by appearances, we suppose our neighbor's real interest clash with ours. When we look only at the outside of things, we believe we are separated from other people physically and psychically, that the universe holds two sets of antagonistic causes, that there is conflict between spirit and matter. This dualism is what the aspirant to the grade of Lesser Adept must overcome. He begins to do so by taking up the work of the grade of Practicus. When one knows by experience that confident expectation forms patterns, which are actually realized in material form, he knows he is not bound by circumstances. He sees then that he is a master of circumstance, to the degree that he is skillful in making mental patterns. He knows that nothing fights against him but his own ignorance and clumsiness. Life power in us is really a mediating influence, or adaptive modifying force, which can affect physical changes at a distance. The mind of man is creative, but its images must be confidently expected to materialize in spite of all appearances to the contrary. The second path leading to the grade of Lesser Adept is that of the letter Samak, represented in the tarot by Temperance. After we have overcome the delusions represented by the devil, we must also do all that we can to deepen our realization that the one I am is the real actor and knower in our personal lives. That I am is the angel of the 14th key. This 25th path begins in Yesod, represented by the pool at the feet of the angel. The automatic activity of the subconscious is the power expressed in all attainment. When we perceive the true foundation of our personal lives and rest of the foundation, we shall never be assailed by doubts as to the adequacy of our own power supply. All power is given me of my Father, said Jesus, and St. Paul exhorts us to have the same mind in us. The free gift of the one life to men is limitless power. To use that gift, we must know how. We have received it, and then apply it according to its law of manifestation. Thus, right theory, as well as right practice, enters into the making of a lesser adept. It is not sufficient to overcome the illusion that we are contained between our hat and our boots. It is not enough to see that our power extends throughout nature. We must know also that this is not personal power, that the actions we perform are grievously misunderstood so long as we suppose them to be merely our own. Personal they are, of course, in the sense that the cosmic life specializes itself in these masks of name and form called human beings, but they are universal too, since all these particular actions are part of an unbroken and unbreakable series of activities proceeding direct from the life source. Eternal being manifests itself in the special functions of temporal existence. This is the lesson of the 25th path of the Tree of Life. There is a Rosicrucian statement that the adepts of the invisible order cannot be seen by human eyes unless they have strength borrowed from the eagle. The connection, of course, is the correspondence between the eagle and the sign Scorpio, which is the sign of death, associated with the letter Nun by Kabbalists. In brief, then, to attain the grade of Lesser Adept, we must first overcome what the devil symbolizes. The chief weapon we shall use to do this will be found to be laughter. When we learn to laugh at obstacles, they disappear. Say cock-a-doodle-doo, too fierce, and they vanish. This is not all imagination, by any means. Laughter, boldness, confidence, these are state of body as well as states of mind. Laughter has a subtle effect upon all the endocrine glands. It changes the body chemistry. The Bible is stating a physical fact when it says, "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine." Secondly, we must zealously rid ourselves of the notion that our personal thoughts, words, and actions are merely personal. I say zealously because zeal is one of those connotations of the Hebrew word RVGZ, attributed to the letter Samak. It is well also to bear in mind that the Kabbalistic correspondences of RVGZ intimate that our zeal is watchfulness in controlling the vibrations of the solar energy typified by the lion in Tarot 8. When we remember that all of our personal activities are really special expressions of this cosmic vibratory activity, and that they are really controlled by the higher self, typified by the angel in Tarot 14, we are on the right track. The work of the 25th path, then, is meant to establish the habit of perpetual recollection that this is the real state of affairs in all we think, say, and do. The lesser adept must be free from all belief in chance, luck, or limitations imposed by the environment. He must know by experiment that the great magical agent is the strong force of all forces, overcoming every solid and penetrating every subtle thing. He must be free from egotism because some of his labors will test his confident reliance on the all-power behind his personality. Quote, "One reality the same yesterday, today, and forever enters my experience as the radiant energy of the sun. This is the real substances of my body, and of all other things that I know. It is the source of every mode of power, the origin of every force, known and unknown. It is also the source of whatever has been known in past ages, of all knowledge existing now, and of all knowledge which will be brought to light in the future, for it is the something which takes form eternally in every manifestation of power, and in every expression of knowledge. Imagination is the direct application of this one power. It is the mental activity whereby the will of intelligent being acts directly upon the great magical agent. Just as my pupil actually made a hat by mental imagery, even though her idea expressed itself through the action of another person, So the lesser adept, working incessantly to perfect his skill, has experience after experience, which demonstrates that his mental pictures are molds or patterns which determine the physical forms taken by the one force. The lesser adept learns that the external physical world is like the screen in a cinema theater. The light is the universal conscious energy. The projection machine is self-consciousness. The lens is attention. The film is the adept's mental imagery. What he sees with his mind's eye becomes actualized through the operation of nature's basic laws. In his presence, marvels take place inexplicable to the ordinary human being. But those marvels are marvels of law, marvels of efficiency, mighty works of creative imagination. The lesser adept, remember, employs no powers which are not used by us all. Every human being projects mental images upon the screen of environment by just the process we have outlined. Most people, however, make distorted images. Their light shines dim. The lens of attention is badly focused. The pictures are hideous and deformed. Thus their experience correspond to their want of skill and scientific imagination. Then ask yourself if you are beginning to see the real purpose of initiation. Has a glimmer of its real meaning entered your mind? Do you realize that the object is not so much to develop powers as to bring you, by actual experiment, to the point where you know, from having set your feet upon the path, just how rugged is the way of return? Sometimes the objection is made that this teaching has too little love in it, is too intellectual. We trust that we have been able to keep out mawkish sentimentality. But no love? What is love? Is it a tickling sensation somewhere around the fifth rib? Is it an emotional compensation for what we miss because we have been too selfish to dare to live? No, love is the gift of one's all to the service of life. It is not merely a throb in a speaker's voice, bringing tears to our eyes, nor simply a rhythm and cadence in his words which makes our hearts beat faster for the moment. Love has its roots in feeling, but it is a barren fig tree unless it brings forth the fruit of action. Action demands skill and training. You cannot feel your way into the kingdom of God. There is no substitute for the agony of hard work. Why does a mother love her child so dearly? For the pains it has cost her. Why does an artist love his work? For the agony he has passed through in bringing it to completion. Why does a mighty stream of love flow without ceasing from the heart of life to us? Why else but that the one life suffers with and through and because of us? He who refuses to drink the cup of pain is unfit for love, knows not what love means, brings a smile of pity to the lips of those who know. For they, the workers, have learned how many years and lives are spent in futile quest. Sentimentalist who refuses to go through the gate of pain. The path of the letter Mem leads from Hod to Gebura, 8-5. It begins in expectation and aspiration, in an eager, long look upward, toward the source of life. This is expressed in the affirmation, I look forward with confidence to the perfect realization of the eternal splendor of the limitless light. Our lips say it now. When our hearts begin to whisper it, we shall enter gladly the path of surrender. Now we stand hesitant at the portal because we still fear the undeviating justice, which is at the upper end of this path. We ourselves are just. Most of us are sure of that. But we doubt the justice of our neighbors. One of the main reasons why we find it so hard to give up the illusion of personal free will, the sense of separate personality, is that we feel subconsciously that then we shall have no shadow of excuse for holding other people responsible for the seeming evils done through them. Yet this was the mind which was in the Master Jesus, as it has been in every other master of wisdom. Judge not is the admonition of them all, it implies. Do not presume to fix the measure of another's responsibility. All the world's law, all the world's customs, all the habits of a billion lifetimes pull against us when we try to stop judging our neighbors. But Jesus, in common with all the great teachers, came with the message that personality originates nothing, that the primal will is the only real will, that men may become wide-open channels of that will, once they get the delusion of independence out of the way. The masters live to show us what we are able to do. The way they took is open to us, as long as we have courage to brave its terrors. This we cannot do until we have become at least lesser adepts. The path of the hanged man is not for beginners on the way of return, for it is a path of what the Hindus call Samadhi, the path of perfect concentration, long continued, which brings a man into conscious union with the essence of the law of life, and makes him see everywhere the exquisite adjustment that we express in our fifth affirmation. Such a man, having been a lesser adept faithful in the lighter tasks of the inner school, now becomes a greater adept who knows himself as a channel for the operation of the unfailing law of the cosmos. He ceases to regard his actions in any personal light. He not only feels the one law working through him, but also knows just how it works in every specific instance. He perceives both the seeds and the fruit of all that is done through him, and he becomes a reader of the hearts of men. For Samadhi is not merely going into a trance. It is a trance, to be sure, but Samadhi is known by its results. From this point on, as the tarot pictures show, the nature of the path changes. The terrors are past. The last illusion of me and mine, that great barrier to love, is dissolved in the path of the hanged man. Thereafter the initiate identifies himself one by one with the descending scale of perfections, represented by the remaining paths of the keys. We have just said that the elder brothers who have reached the grade of greater adept are those who participate consciously in the administration of cosmic law. In this, our first preliminary survey of the way of return, we may only faintly image what this attainment means, yet we should try as best as we can to discern what the adept sees fully in the 22nd path, that of the letter Lamed. Even the greater adept must traverse this path before he may advance to the next grade. It is not enough to be conscious of participation in the government of all things. One must know, but one must also be able to instruct. It is not enough to be consciously immortal, so as to say, before Abraham was, I am. One must recognize the truth that he is the incarnate law. This is what the tarot means by the picture of justice in relation to the way of return. As always, the meaning of the letter name is one clue. The greater adepts perfect themselves by becoming teachers, or rather by becoming mouthpieces for the one teacher. Right here, before we become actually eligible to the inner grade of greater adept, we may prepare ourselves by remembering that each of us stands before the world as an image of the one teacher. Somebody, somewhere, takes every one of us as an instructor now, whether we know it or not. Let us hope that we are not taken an instructor in what to avoid. By watching ourselves carefully, we may accomplish at least one useful bit of teaching. Our lives can show others that one may be interested in occultism without being a freak, without neglecting the niceties of appearance, without trying to be different, by doing and saying queer things, or by wearing outlandish apparel. In the picture of the chariot corresponding to this path, the great car represents the living temple of the life power. The driver is the I am. He is master of the positive and negative expressions of the astral light. The positive is the white sphinx. The negative is the black one. The field cheth of his mastery is that of speech, of the words spoken and unuttered. The unuttered word is a thought. The master of the temple is one who has learned the secrets of magical speech. He builds by ideas. Herein some may see a connection with the old tradition of the lost word. By means of magical speech, the adept may build himself a body which resists every hostile external influence. The master of the temple realizes to the full the meaning of the affirmation. Filled with understanding of its perfect law, I am guided moment by moment along the path of liberation. He feels within him the urge of that resistless will, which others not so wise mistake for something of their own. He makes no plans, but carefully follows the great plan, certain of success. He has neither anxiety nor curiosity about the future, for he has learned to live out the present with a smiling heart. As Eliphaz Levi says, he works as if he had all eternity to work in. This is a subtlety. It does not mean as if an endless vista of time lay before him, in which to complete his undertaking, but rather as if the medium in which he works were eternity, not time. By means of this timelessness in his thought and work, a master of the temple widens the circle of his activities, so that it includes points in space far distant from that occupied by his physical body. By this same freedom from the illusion of time, he produces in an instant results which ordinarily take months to accomplish. What a magus really is may be better understood by reference to the words of Eliphaz Levi. Magic is the divinity of man, achieved in union with faith. The true Magi are man-gods in virtue of their intimate union with the divine principle. They are without fears and without desires, dominated by no falsehood, sharing no error, loving without illusion, suffering without impatience, reposing in the quietude of eternal thought. A magus cannot be ignorant, for magic implies superiority, mastership, majority, and majority signifies emancipation by knowledge. The man-god has neither rights nor duties. He has science, will, and power. He is more than free, he is master. He does not command, he creates. He does not obey, because nobody can possibly command him. What others term duty, he names his good pleasure. He does good because he wishes to, and never wills anything else. He cooperates freely in everything that forwards the cause of justice. And for his sacrifices is the luxury of the moral life and the magnificence of the heart. He is implacable towards evil because he is without a trace of hatred. For the wicked, he regards reparatory chastisement as a benefit and does not comprehend the meaning of vengeance. That man is the true magus, and to reach the grade of magus in the invisible Rosicrucian order is to become aware of the real presence of that man in our lives. Thus the first path of this grade is to that of the Hierophant, beginning in the fourth sphere, or grade of exempt adept. The exempt adept, who has become a master of the temple, has so perfected the organization of his body that no obstruction whatever prevents his communication with the one teacher. He reposes in the quietude of eternal thought, for he shares in the triumphant and eternal intelligence, attributed to the letter Vau, and represented by the Hierophant. He reposes because all sense of personal action is completely extinguished. His words and works are magical, because they are the words and works of the Lord of the universe. The second path to this grade is that of the Emperor, beginning in the sixth sphere, or grade of Lesser Adept, where the magus must be perfected in imagination, must be able to make definite mental patterns. Yet when he does so, he does it not of himself, as does the Lesser Adept. His vision is the sight of the Emperor. He sees the world with God's eyes and sees it always, therefore under his command. Finally, because his body is so perfectly organized, all the ageless wisdom stored in subconsciousness is at his command. The marvelous generative and regenerative powers of subconsciousness which extend, be it remembered, throughout the whole of this plane of physical forms are under this control. With the magus, the formation of mental pictures is followed instantly by their materialization. He sees water as wine, and wine it is. He sees the sick body whole, and every cell is restored to normal function. Yet because he sets merely as the vehicle of the universal life, he brings about no cataclysmic changes in the operation of the cosmic plan, nor will he ever perform mightily works to convince doubters.